Hello, this is John, and this is also John.
Hey.
Hey, and this is part 2 of the Let's Play book club, where John and I play Dark Souls and read the Prince of Thorns and talk about both. Last week we didn't talk much about Dark Souls, so I want to talk a little bit about, I guess what we saw while I played Dark Souls last week. We went through we got the cutscene. I know, John, you said there's not a lot of story there, but the cutscene kind of sets up a big world of Dark Souls. And the first thing you get is the world started as this gray that was just full of immortal dragons. All right. And after a while, the fire comes, and with fire comes disparity. Disparity meaning differences between light and dark, hot and cold. And within the fire, there's souls in the fire, and it's split up among 4 lords. One of which was Gwyn, who is the Lord of Sunlight. The Witch of Izalith, who we'll get into later in the game. Seath the Scaleless, who ends up betraying the dragons. Seath is also a dragon, and he betrays his dragons to help Gwyn and the Witch of Izalith defeat the everlasting dragons, who were immortal but are no longer with the fire. And the final portion of the soul goes to the Furtive Pygmy.
Sounds like a project name or something.
Furtive? The Furtive? Yeah, it does.
No, Furtive Pygmy. Just
the Furtive Pygmy. It sounds like a sick band name, man.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, so we got the Furtive Pygmy. So they all got souls. The Furtive Pygmy is the descendant of man. All men are descended from the Furtive Pygmy in Dark Souls world. Yeah, now you know.
All right.
And now where the game's taking place right now. So the fire that started, that created the disparity and created the world that we've understood. However, 1,000 years of prosperity that existed in the Dark Souls universe is now going away. And additionally, all the humans are being cursed with something called the Dark Sign, which makes them undead, which makes them impossible to kill, which is freaking out all the gods in the world, gods like Gwyn and the Witch of Izalith, who are like, whoa, these humans now are immortal, basically. But, caveat, if you die enough times, you end up going hollow, as the game describes it. And hollow just means you're basically a zombie, but it's not a zombie. It's just humans that lost their will to live, but they have to continue to live. It's kind of deep. So yeah, and we're there. And all the undead have been corralled and sent to the Northern Undead Asylum. And that's where we start. We start off with, you're in the Undead Asylum, and it's basically a prison for all the undead. And we meet our first character, Oscar of Astora.
He's there for like a minute.
Yeah, he was supposed to be a larger part of the game. He's going to be out throughout the whole game. If you look, like the developer notes, the little notes on the ground, John, where you see like read this and it gives you instructions. Yeah. If you look closely, his picture is on the left side of like the note, and it was supposed to be that he was the one leaving notes for you.
Well, he's like somebody that's just a little bit farther ahead.
Exactly. He's supposed to be like your rival, and he's supposed to be constantly ahead of you. But they ended up just killing him off. You see him die, and then we defeat, I forget who it is, the one of the demons. We defeat a demon, and we get picked up by a bird. Interesting side note, the bird's feathers, during that cutscene, are procedurally generated, so you'll never get the same kind of feathers that are flying out when the bird picks you up. I always thought that was cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, isn't that weird? Huh. So the bird picks you up and brings you to Lordran, which is where you're going to fulfill the prophecy. You get very vague instruction on what the prophecy is. You meet the depressed guy, Crestfallen Warrior. You meet the Crestfallen Warrior, who tells you have to ring 2 bells of awakening. One, which is in the Undead Cathedral, I believe. We'll get to that in this game, in this playthrough today. And the second one is down in Blighttown. When you ring both of them, something will happen. So we met Oscar. We met the Crestfallen Warrior. And then at the end of the game, at the end of the time last week, we saw Solaire. Right, John?
Oh, yeah. Sunbro,
everyone's favorite. Had to make sure that we got him in. And now today I hope to get through, full disclosure, don't play it while we're talking. Play it, we talk, and then I try to fit it to the conversation, or fit it time-wise.
Oh, yeah.
So today we're going to meet a handful of characters. One of them is named Lortrek, who's this kind of shady dude. Not a big fan of him. I usually kill him whenever I play through Dark Souls, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let his storyline play out. And then we're meeting one of my favorite characters of all time of any video game, John, is Siegmeyer of Katarina, Onion Bro, Seabro. He's such a good character. The storyline is so good. It's such a poignant storyline if you go through it.
I was going to say his voice actor too is I don't know, pretty enjoyable just to listen to.
Yeah, I know. He's like, I don't know. The characters of Dark Souls are so much more vibrant and interesting. Like, you got Solaire, you got Sigmar, you just have these kind of odd characters that you don't really see in even Dark Souls 2, Like, even the same kind of franchise, you don't really see these kind of interesting
personalities.
Exactly. And we'll also see Andre Avastora, who is the smith, who was supposed to also have a larger role in the game, who ended up getting cut through most of it, but he is important for game mechanics wise, like buffing up your weapons. I also hope that we'll get to the Gargoyles and ring the first bell of awakening in the Undead Cathedral. Pretty sure we'll get to that. Then hopefully we'll get to the Capra Demon. Remember the Capra Demon?
He's one of the dogs, right?
Yeah, he's got the dogs, and he's one of the most annoying bosses in the game. Not because he's particularly difficult, but because of the two dogs that will chase you down while you're trying to fight them, and you're in a really small area. And then perhaps if we have time, I'll get to Havel. I like Havel a lot. Havel's lore is pretty deep. Havel was Gwyn's personal knight, and he's just this giant dude in like badass armor, and he fights dragons, and his weapon is a dragon tooth. So I'm gonna kill that guy.
I like the idea of Havel, but I don't like visually the design.
No, I think he looks so cool.
It seems so lame to me. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't like the tooth, right?
No, I don't like the tooth. I mean, even the armor either. It's just sort of, it looks like kind of like rock. I mean, I'm guessing it's supposed to be kind of like dragon scale kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's just, I don't know, not appealing.
I could see if you hadn't, like, he scared the crap out of me when I first started playing.
Yeah.
Because you just open a door and he's running at you and he hits you and you're dead. So it was like, I'm more afraid of him. Like, I'm afraid to criticize him because then he'll come through the game and kill me or
He's
something.
gonna find you.
Yeah, right. So that's why I like Havel. Or just like, he's scary. Face down that fear. Hopefully I'll get to kill him in one shot. If not, that'll be embarrassing.
And we haven't died yet, correct?
No, I haven't died, but I probably will. That's that. I don't want to like make a big deal about not dying yet because I'm going to die. So it's not like
it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. All right. Well, I think it's Dark Souls. I think that was a good recap, right? That was good.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful.
Hopefully that ties it all together. I know it's kind of confusing.
Yeah. So what did we do? Chapters 7 through 10 for this time?
Yes.
And our action writer finally gets to an action scene in this grouping, which is super nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked this. This section. I mean, we had a lot more fleshing out of all the characters, basically.
Yeah.
So chapter 7 opens. So the Brotherhood sort of riding down the Lich Road back into Ankrath lands, and we get a parallel of what happened in the first chunk of the book. Another burnt out village. I mean, Reich is even doing the exact same things that we saw him do at the very beginning. There hasn't been really much of a description of him, but do you remember? I don't know. Did you watch any of like the Popeye cartoons?
Popeye, yeah, of course. You talking about Bluto?
Yeah, it's exactly like that's what I envision him being like.
You see Bluto?
Like,
oh,
yeah,
that's
scruffy and only in like, I don't know, chainmail, I guess. But he's
Bluto and Popeye was like he was sexually assaulting olive oil. It's not funny. It's horrible.
No, right, exactly. But it's funny because it's a cartoon.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So many parallels.
Anyway.
But yeah, and so we learn in this chapter also how Gomst ended up in the.
I don't know if we don't find out entirely. Like this is all through George's perspective, and he just assumes that. Right. So what happens is. George asks Gomps, like, he knows that they're in Jessup, right? Or they're around Jessup.
Yes, I believe it's the town name.
And that's where Jessup is where the marsh tide takes the dead. So anyone that ends up dead, I guess, around the Lich Way gets washed up in Jessup. And George inquires to Gomst if George's dad, the king, sent Gomst to find George's dead body, basically, to see if George had died. Gomst denies it. Yeah, Gomst denies it, but George believes that Gomst is lying.
Yeah, because he finds out that his dad has got a new queen and a new son, which is problematic.
That is problematic, isn't it?
With having another son that's on the rampage. But so we've got some festival beer that we find in this burnt out
He just pulls it out.
George just finds it. He knows that it's underneath the grain.
Yeah, he knows
silo
everything,
or
doesn't
whatever.
he? He knows everything. Well, he knows. He pulls it out at the exact right moment.
Oh,
Right
yeah,
as,
no.
Right as little Reiki is losing his patience with young George. Reach down here and find the loot.
Right.
Reiki.
And he almost, I don't know, there's been a lot of stuff, not to like go back on our sort of characterization of George as a sociopath or whatever, but he does a lot of almost caring.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
Because he sort of like looks back like fondly on some memories of this place, and that he mentions that like the difference between this and the place that they left and killed everybody in was that these were his people.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's one character in particular that I think we're going to talk about next week that really shows that, I don't know, just something.
Yeah, so maybe he's, I don't know, I was thinking maybe he's trying to play up to this sort of, because it's another thing that, I mean, this is in first person, so there's a possibility that he's not exactly trustworthy as a narrator. Mm-hmm. So he's like saying these things like, "Oh, I'm so awesome," but maybe he's, I don't know.
Yeah, I had that thought too. You know, we don't know how old the person is that is writing the story too. We just, we know it's about a 14-year-old boy, but it's all from the first person. And he could be like, in his 40s looking back on, when he was 14. And I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. There's no mention of when this is you're right. But okay, so chapter 7, we end with them having a party in like the shell of this other town. Mm-hmm. Then moving into chapter 8, we get, so this was something I didn't quite understand, was how he knew that these guys were going to come back through.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. Maybe, yeah, that's a good question.
But so miraculously, George like has an epiphany and realizes that the Count Renard's men, I guess we should have said that earlier, was that the village has been destroyed by Count Renard's soldiers. So the same guy that killed his mom and brother is coming in raiding. So George figures out that they're going to come back through, and they set up basically the perfect plan for foiling these guys as they come back through the village. So George sort of manipulates his dudes and sets them up in like different places within the town, and George makes to surrender, and under a white flag of truce he goes up and Marklos, one of Count Renard's sons, stabs him in the eye with a dagger and steals his horse and runs away. We have a big fight.
George does that. George stabs Marklos.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a big fight of this. I mean, this is, I guess we should touch on the fact that
this is the action scene. Yeah.
Thoroughly outnumbered. It's like 100 guys in like this little like raiding party from Renard, and then George's 24, and so then they break them. So he kills the leader early on, and then they break them. It kills half of the bad guys, and the other half kills half of the other guys, and the other half run away.
George wins the fight.
George wins the fight.
He wins the fight of 100 versus his 30.
Because he's really good at stuff. This is, I don't know, it's sort of set up.
What do you have here on the notes? Scheherazade, Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah, like the golden apple. So this is one of those things where I think from what I understand, like how you write something like this is you take what you want to happen and then like work it backwards so that George looks really, really smart. By I don't know, those sort of like procedural sort of things. So he put all of his men in just the right spots because he knew like how they were going to come into the village.
Yeah.
And so this builds George as so physically competent to like an extreme as far as his like acrobatics with getting on the horse and stabbing the dude, and then a tactical genius with he wins and like super outnumbered.
But he takes a huge risk by like getting captured by Marklos.
Yeah.
To get up to close to Marklos, to stab him in the face and steal his horse and run away. Like that was it's like magic. Almost. Right. It's amazing.
He's so good.
He is so good.
From there though, in chapter 9, we move to a flashback with George and Tutor Lundist. So George is they're going over some like geography, I believe, and George keeps harping on him, asking when his father's armies are going to go and attack the Renar Highlands. 10-year-old.
He wants
boy that
revenge.
is. Yeah.
He wants revenge because Renar killed his mom and sister in front of him when he was in the Briar Patch.
Right.
And he's totally floored when Lundis explains to him that it's not going to happen because Renar, for like political reasons, Renar killed the mom and was trying to kill the two sons because the two houses, his dad's house and his mom's house, couldn't get close because that would create a balance of power in their favor. So he was just trying to end that before the ties got too deep. You know, we get a little view into the politics of the world we're in. I just thought, when I first read it, I thought, because he was floored. He was like, George was completely floored about Lundis, what Lundis was telling him. Like, how can you mean we're not going to go after this guy? And I'm not positive, but didn't Lundis explain in this chapter that Renar basically paid off his dad not to attack? He gave him like horses or something. I could be wrong.
Yeah, trade rights, horses, and some land. I think is what it equated
just to not attack him, and that blew him away. And my first initial reaction to that was like, oh, this is like George is kind of naive. Like he kind of feels, he doesn't really get the kind of politics of the world he's in. But at the same time, that is so screwed up. Like any person would be like, that's messed up. Like, so he's not really naive. I guess he's just sort of like how a normal person would react to something like that. Obviously, like if somebody kills your I don't know. God forbid, but you'd think there'd be some sort of revenge in line, and then to hear that everybody's just playing along with it, you'd be like, wait a second. It's like the world is crazy and George is the only sane one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought that it did a really good job, one, in giving George those sort of like characterizations, but also to give you a broader sense of what's going on in the world, because it was really well done. Just the fact that, I don't know, you get that kind of exposition from like Macon or some of the other characters, it would have seemed really, I don't know, lame. Yeah. But because it's from a tutor, like he's explaining it in a way to like make his student understand.
Yeah, no, I find the flashbacks super well done. Yeah. They're not really they're not jarring, they're not confusing. They're just, I don't know. I will commend Mr. Lawrence on that. That is a very good storytelling mechanism he has. Those little flashbacks into this, it's like a really small moment too. Like most of the flashbacks have just been this afternoon with Lundis almost,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, agreed.
Yeah.
So they also wanted to note from this chapter was mention of a couple of more philosophers and ancient guys, Euclid, Plato, and Sun Tzu. Mm-hmm. Those are all real people.
All real people.
Add that to Plutarch from our earlier discussion.
Who I didn't remember was a real person. But yeah, I did notice that Euclid, Plato, and Sun Tzu were here. Yes, I was like, oh, yes, there it is. I'm not stupid.
I know those guys.
Though.
So we get more of that, I don't know what's going on kind of thing.
Yeah.
As to why he's adding in real-world elements into this sort of fantasy. So
I don't know. Is that really odd? I'm just kind of taking it as, I don't know, whatever world building, like you said earlier. Do you think it's gonna play a larger role in the story further down?
I don't know.
Oh,
I can't say.
You can't say.
I guess I should say again that I have read these books before, so I do know what happens. But
see, that's why. Yeah, that's whenever you bring up something that I'm like, why is he bringing that up? I'm just like,
why is he harping on that?
Interesting.
No, I mean, those are things. First read through, I didn't notice. I guess is the reason why I'm.
Okay, cool. Sure yeah, I'm glad that we get to do this together. So I get to.
Yeah.
Because I really wouldn't have picked up. I literally would have thought Plutarch was just the name of the book. So I'm glad that we got to talk about that and.
With these kind of fantasy stories too, a lot of times it's just like, okay, names, people, places. Yeah.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
You just move through it.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, how you were saying with George, I didn't even pronounce that. I just skipped through. And that's the main character.
Jorg, I guess, was what I was thinking. I was thinking a Slavic, Icelandic name, but I wasn't really saying it in my head. I don't know.
No.
But I'm trying to do that more now since then, because now because I never really talk about characters with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everybody that had read Harry Potter before it came out in movies, and then when you finally heard how you pronounce Hermione, everyone was like at least all the Americans were. All the Americans I don't know if that's like a popular name in England, but it was.
Oh no, I have no idea. But yeah, you're right. It's just you see it, and then you see that you attach those letters to that person in your mind and then just
the
skip
character.
through it. Right.
Yeah.
But,
all right. Chapter 10. Chapter 10 was really good. I like Chapter 10.
We get back to the present, and so one of Marklos's bodyguards is still alive, and he is a knight. So this is Sir Renton, who is now been captured, and George does some toying with him as he's sort of like sitting on these steps with his sword across his lap in a sort of like play on being on a throne. And I don't know, you had something here that you made a note of, a line that you liked.
Well, yeah, I like Renton. I didn't like how they describe Renton as like a mousy looking rat guy. But he says one thing. So, like you said, George is torturing. He's already kind of torturing him psychologically. And George kind of reveals his revenge plot. He talks about Count Renar killed his mother and his brother, and he's going to get revenge. And Renton's reaction to that is, and keep in mind that Renton is like fearing for his life. He thinks he's going to die. And this kid that's like threatening to kill him is like, I'm going to avenge my family. And Renton is like, he says, I love it. All men die. What makes you so special? I love that. It's so good because it just throws like the whole book on on its head. I know we've used that, and that's in the back too. But it's like this whole book is built up around this kid who's great at everything, who knows where everything is, who everybody likes immediately, and you have this character now who is so low on the totem pole, who is literally covered in crap, who they describe as this rat, and they just don't like him, and he's the one questioning. What makes your story so special? Like so many people, like you're just one of many people in this entire world who have probably suffered great loss and great tragedy and deserve revenge. Why do you get to do this? And I don't know. I just thought that was great. And what's his name? George even says like he had a good point. He says that what makes my loss, my pain, more important than everyone else's. And then he says, "That's a good question." I said. A damn good question. I don't know. I just thought that was a great exchange.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just even like the circle of that brings back to the fact that I guess the soldiers from Count Renar, they had like gone raiding farther in and were bringing more people back to like set them all on fire because it's like their specialty is burning people.
Yeah.
And so they had a bunch of villagers with them. So these people who have had a lot of, just their lives were ruined. Family members that have died, people that they know, the whole village destroyed. They then get that revenge that George is looking for because George gives these people Renton, and they set him on fire and burn him to death.
They do.
Which brings us basically to the end of the chapter and the section that we read. Yeah, what do you think of George as a character?
Well, another full disclosure, we've read ahead and we're going to do 2 shows today, but we're going to split it into 2. But the next few chapters, I think, develop George more as a deeper character. And I really like it in that sense. I don't know. It's a fantasy novel. It's not a hard read. It's a fun read. It's a good book. I enjoy it.
Yeah, no.
What do you like about it? What made you want to do this book? Why did you pick this book? I know that.
Why did I pick this?
Part of it was, the idea to play a video game and bringing Dark Souls into it, and you wanted to line up the kind of genre. But there's like so many fantasy game or fantasy novels. Why? I know you're a big fan of them. Why did you pick this one?
Versus like Joe Abercrombie's series, which could have fit in just as well.
Like anything else that
I think. That's a good question.
There has to be something about this book that you liked.
George develops, as in, whereas there are definitely like characters so you can sort of empathize in other stories. This, though, I don't know, he does a really cool thing near the end of this book that I think you'll end up liking.
Yeah, I 100% trust your judgment because a few books that you've recommended to me, I started reading them and I was like, and then, if I just stuck with it, every single time I stuck with it and I was like, it got so good. Like, this is so, and I think I don't know, this is another example. Like, it starts off kind of and as we're continuing on, I'm getting more and more interested in it. And not so, like, George is interesting. I also find the peripheral characters interesting, like Renton, the guy we just talked about, who asked George, who basically questioned what something that we didn't really talk about with that question. You know, Renton questions what makes George so special. He really doesn't even have an answer for it though. He's just like, I'm so special because that's the way it is, or like I'm the one doing these things. Like I guess it's almost like it's like an Andy Warhol thing. Like everyone gets their 15 minutes. Like I'm just like everybody else, but I'm doing it now, basically. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of interesting. Very postmodern.
And just, I mean, he's inherently selfish. I mean, what makes him special? Well, he's him. So that's.
Yeah. I'm me and you're not. So next week, we'll be doing chapters 11 through 14. I don't know what in my hard copy. That's like pages 65 through 95.
Definitely pick up the book. It's not too late to start in. Like, you could read everything that we've read so far in the span of an evening. So catch up and read along.
Like, comment, subscribe.
If you have a suggestion for a future book or a game that you'd like to see, please let us know, because
that's a good idea.
We don't know what we're doing. If not, we'll just keep on with this, I guess. But
there's so much I don't know that I'm doing. Most of my life is I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, and this is just one small sliver of my life, so obviously I don't know what I'm doing.